In the winter of 1962, when the world was divided into two blocks, the capitalist West and the communist East, India found itself facing an invasion from an unexpected direction. The Sino-India War had erupted across the vast Himalayan frontier, and the Chinese army was pushing deep into Ladakh with overwhelming force. While generals in Delhi were preparing how to respond to the invasion, a small company of Indian soldiers was positioned at one of the most inhospitable places on earth.
I was a helicopter unit commander in Ladakh for 3 years. At the time when the war broke out, these men were occupying a picket at a height of 18,000 feet. The temperatures dipped down to about minus 30 degrees. Winds howl at around 45 nautical miles. The wind chill effect is about minus 75 to minus 80 degrees. It was Charlie Company of 13 Kumaon Battalion, which was tasked to protect the pass at all costs. And they were expected to fight till the last round, last man. It was a very vital pass. Access to that pass would have opened up the route to Chushul and on to Ladakh. The company commander was Major Shaitan Singh, whose exemplary leadership preserved India's homogeneity and integrity. And he was awarded the nation's highest wartime award of Param Veer Chakra, and very rightly so. All these men belong to Yadav and Ahir community, and 17 of them belong to one village in Mahendragarh district. What the Indian Army and the soldiers of 13 Kumaon Charlie Company did was something absolutely unbelievable. And hence it's one of the most epic battles of the 1962 war.
At 18,000 feet, where oxygen grew thin and the temperature plummeted to minus 20 degrees Celsius, lay a narrow mountain pass called Rezang. It wasn't like a conventional pass, just an exposed ridge of barren rock carved into the southeastern edge of the Chushul Valley in Ladakh, but it held within it the fate of an entire region.
This pass was a vital route which was leading on to Chushul Valley, and had the Chinese captured the Chushul Valley, it would also open up the access of advance for Ladakh. As I said earlier, I was the helicopter unit commander for 3 years, and the most critical access of advance to Ladakh was through Chushul Valley. And it would have made our positions, even in Ladakh, extremely vulnerable to the Chinese advance. The Chinese had wanted to occupy the ridgeline, and after they occupied the ridgeline, they declared a ceasefire, and the battle ended.
Now in November 1962, the 120 soldiers from the Charlie Company of the Indian Army's 13 Kumaon Regiment were sent. They were young men, most of them just young boys. They came from the sun-drenched villages of Haryana, where cattle grazed on green fields, and the worst winter anyone knew was just men putting on an extra shawl. These were Ahirs, men from the communities of farmers and herders who had never seen snowfall until now, who had never trained in high-altitude combat. Those rifles were relics from the Second World War, ancient .303 bolt action rifles that require a soldier to manually chamber each round.
Firstly, it was very tortuous terrain, hostile weather conditions. Indian Army was ill-clad in terms of winter dressing, and we had vintage and pristine weapons of the Second World War vintage. We had a single-shot 303 rifles, no artillery support, no medium machine guns, only the light machine guns with a range of just about 500 meters. The Chinese had the advantage of medium machine guns, they had the advantage of heavy machine guns, they had artillery support, and they had major mortar support of a much greater and better variety than what we had. In spite of that, Indians inflicting casualties almost more than 10 to 15 times is something absolutely exemplary and unheard of. And the Chinese itself were absolutely stunned.
They were led by Major Shaitan Singh, a Rajput officer whose name meant devil in Hindi, though his men would come to know him as something far greater, part angel, part legend. And on the morning of November 18, 1962, when the darkness of the mountain night began to lift, between 3,000 to 5,000 Chinese soldiers equipped with modern weapons and with artillery support, began their assault in a wave that seemed endless.
I have myself been in several wars, 65, 71, 99. At every point of time, once the war begins, initially you are scared and you do not want to lose their life. But once the war starts, the scare is gone. You don't think of your family, you don't think of your next of kin, you are only thinking of the cause for which you are fighting. And the cause for which you are fighting, पलटन की इज्जत, देश की हिफाजत. And they were fighting for the पलटन की इज्जत and देश की हिफाजत, and that's exactly what they did. When the Chinese were coming with every type of support that they had, artillery support, motor support, heavy machine gun, medium machine guns, in spite of the fact that they must have seen death in their face, they stood valiantly to defend the sovereignty of the nation till the last breath. This was something completely unheard of in the annals of warfare. They can be compared to something similar what the Sikh troops did in Afghanistan in Battle of Rezang.
What happened next could have been a footnote in history, another forgotten tragedy of an unprepared nation. Instead, it became something else, a story of courage so extraordinary. By the time smoke cleared, those 120 men had killed thousands of Chinese soldiers.
माँ की इज्जत को कायम रखना है, and that is something that the Indian soldier always and every time fights for the एकता and अखंडता of the motherland. और वो कहता है देश की sanctity and authority को जो भी कोई challenge करेगा हम उसको बख्शेंगे नहीं. Had Rezang fallen easily, for example, had they fallen at the very initial stages of the battle, the Chinese would have not stopped. They would have captured Chushul, entire Gongso Lake and the area south of it, which we are holding, would have fallen to them, and they would have opened up the most critical access to Ladakh. And for all you know, they would have not stopped anything short of Ladakh. Even the famous Khardungla Pass and the Changla Pass, not Khardungla, the Changla Pass could have been captured by the Chinese, which would have opened the way to Ladakh. And that would have been a crisis situation for India.
After the Indo-China War was over, and when the search parties finally reached the frozen battlefield in the spring of 1963, they found the bodies of 114 Indian soldiers still holding their weapons, some still clutching grenades, their frozen bodies facing the direction from which the enemy had come. Those 120 men had achieved something that many believed was impossible. They had defeated a superpower and saved their motherland.
The love of the nation is of absolute and predominant importance. You cannot allow the sanctity and authority of the nation to be challenged, and you got to ensure that sovereignty, homogeneity, integrity of the nation is preserved at all cost of the time. और हम लोग साफ तौर पे कहते हैं the safety, honor and welfare of the country comes first always and every time for leaders. The safety on welfare of the men you command comes next. Your own personal safety and welfare come last always and every time. And the Indian soldier always remembers that cowards die many times before their death. The valiant never taste of death but once. Our soldiers are very genuinely tough. They are physically and mentally resilient, and they can outshoot and outperform any enemy whatsoever. The Chinese ought to be careful. अगर हिंदुस्तान को ललकारोगे तो मार खाओगे.